Chapter 6 Snowscape. Upon being called her full name, Rose's eyes slowly open. Yes, it is I. And who might I be talking to? The leaves laugh through the wind. An old friend who has not forgotten you, a remnant of the old world. The dew of the tree floats down in sprinkles, anointing her shoulders. And the friends of the old world wish to know, wherefore have you appeared? Rose narrows her eyes, curious to see if this tree seems to be telling the truth. However, it's hard to gain deep insight into such a godly figure, but from what Rose can tell, the words are sincere. The tree speaks of her with fondness. I don't yet know the reasoning. I woke up recently in a burial chamber near the marsh a few days ago. What felt like a final message from Order came to me in the form of a butterfly, who told me to seek you for answers. Though I am curious, you say an old friend, and while I get the feeling this is accurate, is this old friend one who was part of divinity before my disappearance? There's a small pause. A message from Order to seek my assistance? The sudden rustling of leaves in the canopy of the branches above her is almost deafening. Is the tree laughing? Extraordinary, it continues its booming, silvery laugh. How very extraordinary. A defunct elder, lost to circumstance, is seeking my aid for his chosen. But no, I was not part of divinity, not until the circumstances that have rooted me thus. But even that may be debatable. Rose hums for a moment, listening to this. Lost to circumstance. I felt the connection was gone the moment I left the chamber, so I knew something was wrong. She lets out a small sigh. Well, regardless of whatever relationship we had or did not, I'm going to assume you will not tell me who you were. As much as I do seek to find someone I know, it would be rather careless for a divine entity to reveal such. So I suppose I'll ask instead, what happened to the old gods and their underlings? But the breeze is redirected. It flows through the grass near Rose. Someone you know. You seek a remnant of the familiar. As it was 300 years ago, and now I have nothing to hide. There are few who remember me for my original self. Its voice is familiar and disarming. In the intertwining locks of its gilded branches overhead, there is a flash of a gentle smile. Perhaps memory has made strangers of both of us? Have you truly forgotten me, Miss Rose? Being addressed as such, this hits Rose like a truck. Eh? Miss Rose? Is that fucking Edmund? How did you become a tree? You taking the surname a little too literally there. Oh no, I remember you well. 300 years passed in what essentially feels like a nap, so everything prior to my death is still very fresh. The doll explodes in bright red apoplexy. Edmund? Fucking Edmund was the scratching post this entire time? The golden eyesore? No, fuck you. I'm out of here. Fuck the tree pope. Oi, Peanut, why are you so chill about this? Rose attempts to hold on to Hughes as if to try and calm him down. We're chill about this because we have a source of information for everything we've missed. We're not currently enemies. She attempts to reason, knowing it's unlikely to work. Were there benzos in the cake or something? You think this guy's just going to hand over information on a silver platter? The doll yells in disbelief. A blue spectral hand pops out and grabs the doll. I'm out. Rose grabs the Hughes doll, knowing full well that the hand can't carry her away, yet. I can't just let a doll float out on a flying mage hand, idiot. Just sit and sing a song inside your head if you don't want to listen. Rose turns her head back to the tree. We've never been on the best of terms. I assume you're aware that history will affect what happens here and now. It may have been 300 years for you, but for me, it was only a few years ago since we clashed, and those wounds are still fresh. As you can see from Hughes here. However, I am more willing to talk than he is. There's a rustle in the branches of curious amusement. So I have witnessed, untouched by time, in the matter of spirit, but not in body, as is the case for your guardian. The sophist continues to speak. His voice is a choir of old and young, male and female, neutral and metallic all at once. I would be interested to see how this came to pass. You ask about the pantheon of old. Regale me with your circumstance, Miss Rose, and I will respond in kind. After all, you have been gone for quite some time. Meanwhile, the doll wriggles helplessly in Rose's grasp as it starts screaming orcish insults into her ear. In short, because I just told the story, I was Order's chosen. A changeling who made claim of being Chaos's chosen came and stabbed me repeatedly while I took a nap. He also killed Hughes. Told me I was required to stay on the golden path. Another cryptic fucker. Said we couldn't kill each other, cast a spell, and I woke up 300 years later. That's pretty much all of it in a nutshell. However, she pauses, having a thought. Say, you're like a deity now, right? Can't I just let you see my memories or some shit? She sounds more aggressive in her wording, not because it's Ed, but because she's fighting a loud and angry Hughes, which she's likely just pissed off more with that suggestion. And the doll has elected to start nodding its head instead. She gets the distinct impression that it's trying to bite down on a tongue it no longer has. The overhead branches creak in the wind, slow and deliberate, carrying the weight of centuries. Interesting. Finally, the tale of your demise, felled not by decay, nor time's relentless march, but by your natural adversity. A shadowed mirror of yourself, and yet here you stand, unbroken, untouched by the passing years, subdued into stasis, then, and hidden from all, until now. Curious indeed. At Rose's latter comment, the soil thrums at her feet. To see what you have, that would certainly be within my abilities. And at command, a golden vine tethers down, floating from the tree's bark, as if it has a mind of its own. But you misunderstand. I am no deity. I am merely as I always was. But, in the absence of the divine, humanity has always been quick to sculpt false gods out of the shadows, and crown the unyielding and unknown. The Holy See of Monday is a testament to such. However, Rose scoffs at the response. Are you forgetting that I was on the road to ascension against my will based on the fact that Caradoc had set up ability to worship me? Whether you like it or not, Mundi's people already worship you. That will be feeding you divine energy, and you have likely already become a demigod, by your choosing or no. Unless something drastic has changed the way worship creates divine beings, you're already there. Rose reluctantly accepts the tether that extends from the tree. You can view that memory of the day I died and nothing more. I find you looking at anything else, and I'll find a way to fell you. There's a long, wistful breeze weaving through its boughs. Much has shifted in the heavens in your absence. The gods, the divine, they are no more. Banished. Extinguished. The wind rises, lifting the stray hairs from her eyes. If you will, lift your gaze beyond the canopy, past the weft of branches and leaves, and witness it for yourself. Gaze upon the heavens, and you shall have your answer. And Rose does. She raises her head. The sky had always been there, but for the first time she focuses, past the sophist's branches, until she glimpses the heavens in its naked form. Severed from Order's connections as she was, the presence of the divine is still something she's attuned to, as a blind man might remember glimpses of past sights. And what she feels is different. The presence of divine energy is scant and stagnant in the air, if not nearly extinguished. It is as if the heavens are being blocked off by an intrusive presence. It's barely perceptible, but she sees it. A shimmering veil in the skies, thin as a yolk's membrane, yet it encompasses the sky's horizon like a dome. She cannot see the end of it. Rose shakes off a slight unease, making a note to question that something happened after he has a poke around her memories. She reaches out and accepts the tether being offered by the tree. The vine hovers from her hand and touches her forehead with a gentle tap. Her head tingles with a buzzing warmth, and the sound of the screaming red menace in her hands slowly fades out as the memories begin to replay. And it is as if a switch was flipped. Visions of that fateful birthday flash through her mind at the speed of a shuffling deck, the smell of extinguished candles, the feel of pillow as she lays her head down, the violation of steel into her ribs, the stabbing again and again, clawing her nails at the face above her, white and stark and emotionless. It's almost as if she was reliving it again. But then, in a bleak, snowy field, frigid air bites at her cheeks, cooling blood, not hers, on her blade. Beneath her, buried in the snowfall, someone white and bloodied. This is not a memory, but she can't help but feel as if something is wrong. His voice rings out. "Don't you remember?" And in the breath of a gasp, she returns to where she never left. The vine releases from its touch. This mother... No. Is this some alternate timeline, some cryptic bullshit? Why can this dude speak in my dreams like he gets to break the fourth wall? What is the matter with that? Rose sits once more, staring off into the middle distance with a groan. Well, you saw it all, right? I don't remember the other part after I got filled with holes, so that was new to me. The tendril slowly retreats back into its bark. So, that is how you met your end. A curious one, if not ironic, the leaves seem to muse. For one so bound by extraordinary powers to fall in such a manner is almost unbecoming, is it not? Especially for your guardian. The doll spits in response. Go fuck yourself, Stumpy. The other vision, it continues undeterred, was quite unusual, indeed. Disjointed, fragmented. A puzzle piece that refuses to align, but your memories, at least, speak plainly. I can see how you came to arrive in this moment, in the way that you did. Rose continues to groan after seeing the face of her killer in her dreams once again, speaking to her from beyond. Being a deity, that doesn't surprise me that you've seen something I have not. I feel like the more questions I ask, the more indebted to you I'm going to become. I sense a request coming my way soon. She shakes her head. But I am compelled by the mysteries to ask for more. Yes, ironic as it may be that the Elder God of Order would direct me to you, I need to know, what is that dome blocking the connection to the divine, and does it have anything to do with my death? The leaves of the great tree shimmer and sway. You speak of the veil, born from the ashes of the War of the Lost Faiths, long after your departure. However, even that is a misappropriation of your fate. You did not die, Rose. You were imprisoned. She pauses, absorbing this information. I was stabbed, a lot, and woke up in a burial chamber. I feel like I died for a bit. All right, well, this Golden Path malarkey, I assume, is to break this veil or do something to diminish its effects. If not, then I'm just going to go and retire in the woods somewhere and live a quiet life. But that never works out, does it? Rose stands, fighting the urge to ask more questions and become more indebted to Edmund. Though there is one final she feels is relevant for now. And what do you want from me? She asks, non-committally. For one of your previous stature, I imagine the art of stillness is foreign to you. A life by a quiet lakeside is something I wager Mr. Sarmenti might have wanted for you in another life. She hears a faint hum emanating from the trunk, like the echo of a distant laugh in the wind. Ever the pragmatist, orders chosen, even when you yearn to ask for more. Rose spins on her heel. I mean, if you were sent for a 300 years nap, and woke up to Nephany being a tree that everybody worshipped, I'm sure you'd have some questions about that. This is essentially a foreign world to me now, just with similar place names. The hum of the trunk vibrates into the soil. She gets the feeling that he's laughing again. What I seek from you, Rose, is not servitude, but understanding. The old gods, the war of lost faiths, the sundering of lay. The new world that rose from its ashes after it is vast, and beyond your understanding. So, I ask you to learn, if not from me, Then, from the voice of Monday's people, the leaves of the surface ruffle with weary release, a sigh. For I see you as you are, a shadow of the brilliance you once embodied, yet in the void left by strength, knowledge can stand as a blade sharper than any forged steel. Until you arm yourself, orders chosen, there's little more I would ask of you. Rose channels her inner hues for a moment. Wow, so now I'm not good enough for you? Well, you're not wrong. I'm feeling stiffer than a sloth these days. She sighs, shaking her head, the idea of learning a whole new world. But it's what needs to be done. Sadly, I was told in the swamp that doing any research on the old gods wouldn't be well looked upon here on Monday. Do you have any insight on that? I'm going to need to do some research of my own, but I don't want to be crucified by your loyal subjects for thinking about other gods, which, I remind you, you are to them. The tree pauses slightly. The old gods are a contentious subject, even for people far removed from it by time. An ancient shame, partially responsible for the sundering and Irem currently as it stands. And yet, for all the pain it holds, to turn from such knowledge is to walk blind into the same mistakes of old, such as I have espoused to the Illuminates. Thus, there are records of what you seek in the Athenaeum, in the third ring, or you could just ask me. It chuckles. I see either recourse will lead to suffering for your guardian. The doll groans, just like the genuine article. It'd rather gut itself than spend an eternity staring at some dusty old books. Rose turns, looking back. Okay, but why are you a tree? She asks bluntly, as if it were the first thing on her mind, the first thing that should have been answered. Indeed, why am I a tree? A question that echoed through my thoughts in the nascent years of my transformation. And the answer, my old friend, lies buried in the foreknowledge of the war and the sundering that followed. But to work backwards, we shall start here, with the roots below your feet. He speaks to her as if orating to a group of pupils. Look closely, and tell me what you see. She looks down, or sideways. The golden roots beneath her feet are as large as the average tree trunk. It's hard to know where to look, specifically, but her eyes glance to where root and soil make contact. She bends down for a closer look, and narrows her eyes. Embedded between root and soil are scant traces of hard mineral, white and transparent, with the barest glimmer of golden flecks in them. Even now they thrum with dormant arcane energy. Rose has seen these before. She sucks air through her teeth, contemplating just how much magical energy is here. Could it potentially level the whole city? You, really loved those crystals, didn't you? Or was this one not by your choosing? Love, he whispers, this word with tender inflection. I have come to know that word in centuries past. It is not one I would use for this occasion. The circumstances were not of my own choosing, but it was my decision to become what I have. For you see, this is where the sundering of lay began. There's a rueful sigh in the creak of its old branches. And these minerals, which you knew as amplification crystals, are ley stones. And what role did you play in it? Evidently this monument atop Kelowna has something to do with it all. There's a caution in her tone, as much as she doesn't want to accuse of anything. It's not like she doesn't have a justification to believe that he might have had a hand in whatever transpired here. In causing it? None. Though your faith in my powers flatter me, it is misplaced. This monument, my body, was a result of staunching the offence of the sundering, the cataclysmic force that shattered the lands of Mana. And the sundering itself was the bitter fruit of the War of the Lost Faiths. Rose pauses, almost flabbergasted. So, your part to play in it all was dampening the effects? You were the good guy in all of this? Some kind of self-sacrifice for humanity? The doll mutters. The words good and self-sacrificing are the last things I'd attribute to this guy. The tree responds, a lack of pride in his voice, merely indifference. One so poetically inclined might use those words. The Illuminates already have, albeit through romantic lenses and the verdant hymns, the Holy Book. You'll encounter it on any Illuminate. Given the presence of the missionaries in the swamp, perhaps you already have. You remember Kelna of old, the breadbasket of Irem, fertile and plentiful, as if blessed by the Fae themselves. But greens and fruits were not all that Kelna yielded. Deep below the soil, carved into the veins of its stone walls. Do you remember what that was? Rose chooses not to comment on the previously mentioned Illuminates for now. Yes, even more of the crystals you so desired. I'm going to assume we're standing atop the hoard of all that has gathered over time? He muses slightly. Only in a matter of speaking. Picture, if you will, a spider's web, an intricate lattice of threads funneling from its centre. This is a simplified reflection of the network that sprawls throughout Mana deep in its core, which we now know as ley lines. And where we stand now, in the heart of Old Kelna, is the centre of that network. Raw, arcanic energy condensed into physical form over time. You are no stranger to its explosive properties when exposed directly to man-made magics. Rose has a momentary image of a professor facing a blackboard. Far less is spoken of its secondary affinity, discovered decades after your departure, to make natural life prosper. Flora and fauna, given time, would bloom in radiance. In that aspect, these crystals are fountains of vitality, knitting prosperity into the soil itself. The fertile fields of humble Kelna, replete with bountiful harvests and life, despite its simple culture, it is no coincidence. Rose ponders on this, thinking of her time spent in Kelna over the past years. So, despite being a mineral, as such, that we mainly used for destructive magic, or other increased properties, the unbothered ones were acting like a turbo soil, feeding steroids into the plant life. I guess that would certainly explain Kelna's great yields despite being so far north. For a moment, dim sunlight filters through the canopied shifts, dappling the grounds in peculiar patterns. An apt summarization. Good, then you understand. Now, envision this. The might of a Gradian army. Warriors clad in unyielding steel, wizards that rival Kirkwald's brightest. Their march through Torma brought them here, to the gates of Kelna, and this was where they met their impasse. The unified might of Kelna, Kirkwall, and Bagkull, a coalition of strength forged in desperation. It was here that we made our stand. Steel met steel, the air crackled with arcana. The land trembled under the weight of our struggle. In this crucible of conflict, I imagine you know what came next. Rose is quiet at this moment. My assumption, based on your narrative, a domino-like shockwave setting off each pocket of unstable crystal underground. She poses this as a question, unsure whether or not her answer is correct. But the leaves shake in deference. It is as you say, a convergence of arcane might drawn from two continents, shattering the skin of Mana apart no easier than a fragile vase. The weight of this folly lies not on one man, but on us all, on the hubris of those who squabble over the blessings of the old gods. There's a low, respondent groan in the ground that echoes beneath Rose. Miles of laystone exposed in every fissure, its amplifying properties bleeding ripe in such a state. Every fleeting moment in the aftermath claimed 100 more lives, and yet, within the devastation lay cruel irony, a continent's worth of raw power waiting to be wielded, but only by one who seeks to heal, not harm, could Mana's sundered state be salvaged. Rose sits at this point, attempting to take in the history lesson. So what year was this? I'm assuming then that you are the one who had given himself to the unstable powers that rest below the surface to heal the shattered lands? Indeed, I tried to graft a spell of unparalleled might, one that might heal the land's sundered wounds, yet even my knowledge and mastery, vast as it was, proved insufficient. Such power was too great, too volatile for a mortal vessel to command through the arcane arts alone. The wind whispers faintly, carrying a chill through the air as the sunlight dims. The land unravelled beneath us, we became undone, and as the weight of failure loomed, it was as if my hands moved by themselves. In my desperation, I transmuted myself, forsaking flesh and form, to become something the Leystones would favour. A vessel attuned to their true nature, capable of channeling its energy in a most beneficial form. Rose can feel a mournful vibration pulse through the roots underneath her feet. Such was the War of the Lost Faiths, a conflict etched deep in history. It unfolded 240 years ago. Yet its scars endure, carved into the bones of this land. Look around and you will see it still, the raised topography of Mundy, the countless crags and fractures of the swamp, crudely mended by roots and blood. And yet, despite the ruin, life persists. The people carried on, a testament to the indefatigable spirit of man. Rose takes a moment, piecing it all together. She muses at the idea that the saviour of the lands would be a man she tried to kill not long before. Then it is safe to say that these people today owe you an unimaginable debt for allowing them to continue to breathe, though I imagine you don't see it that way at all. Rose looks down to the Hughes doll, thinking back on their conflict prior. It is as Nephany said all those years ago. Your goal was for the longevity of mankind in one way or another. Back then it was twisted, manipulating flesh and magic into an amalgamation and instability. But this? You have earned my deepest respects, Edmund Gildenbranch. She bows her head slightly in respect. Twisted or lauded, there is no obstacle too great for the sake of mankind's will. Had I the choice, I would still have done both, for it is through both that I became what I am, and the world what it is now. The surrounding air grows warmer around Rose as a faint floral scent wafts through the air. Still, for the history of our short-lived adversity, your sentiment carries warmth. Rose smiles upon hearing this. Our entire organisation that thrived upon the prospect that, given a second chance, even the most misguided and powerful tools that were used to cause harm can be used to benefit. It would be extremely hypocritical of me to say otherwise for what you've done. The tree's leaves brighten and shimmer slightly. Ah, yes, the Sanctuary of Thorns. A creed which I cannot disagree with. Eventually, the doll pipes up. What's it like, then, being a tree? The sofa's branches shift into an outward angle resembling a curve of a smile. I find myself rooted in the present, seeing through the eyes of all the mundanes. I have branched out into more things than one can possibly experience in a lifetime. But there is merit to sticking to one's roots. Rose groans upon hearing this. Did he just make 3 puns? Speaking of which, I did want to ask about that. Are you essentially seeing through everyone's eyes all at once, or do you have to choose to see through someone? You speak of those who have undergone substantiation. Yes, I can see through them all, but to focus on every one would demand far more concentration than one could feasibly afford. Rose thinks back to the 2 times that she was called upon. You seemed to lock in pretty quickly on me the 2 times I was talking to the Illuminates. I imagine you must spend a lot of time viewing through the eyes of the others, thanks to probably a lack of stimulus. Thalgra seemed utterly in disbelief that you spoke through her. Is that something you choose to do often? The branches sway above in thought. When it comes to speaking through the Illuminates, not at all. I find that the affairs of men are troubled enough without the complications of a magic tree's influence. On the contrary, I am sufficiently rooted in other concerns, even in this form. But I do look when something piques my interest. As you might imagine, Sarmenti is not a common surname. Hughes pipes up. Told you should have gone with Malone. Rose groans slightly at Hughes calling her out. I'm willing to bet nothing I could have come up with would have worked. 300 years is, 10 generations of human races? Names change often, but it all worked out, so I'm fine with it. She turns back to the tree. Also, did you happen to see someone get cleaved in half last night? Was threatening or sexually harassing some half-elf, then boom! Big black necrotica armor drops down and splits him like a watermelon. Chased me through the streets last night. Acted like it knew me. The tree hesitates for a moment. I did not see it with my own eyes, but you speak of the Fell Knight. They walk the streets, unseen by most, but never without purpose. The illuminates are not infallible to mortal failings, avarice, wrath, envy, vices that even the most devout cannot always escape. For those whose transgressions go unchecked, those whose sins are beyond the reach of their brethren, it is the fell knight who attends to them. I did sense one of my eyes flicker out, like a star dimming in the heavens. Perhaps that's what it was. Rose seemed slightly confused. Right, so I've got nothing to worry about? But, like I said, it chased me down and asked if it knew me, shortly before I nearly pissed my pants and fainted. Then perhaps there are more friends of the old world to greet you yet. My eyes do not extend to them as such, their affairs are not mine to track. For a necrotic vigilante prowling the streets, the tree certainly does not sound too concerned. If you stay in Monday, perhaps fate will allow you to cross paths once more, and then you may find the option to inquire about your acquaintance in that regard. Rose hums pensively. We shall see. She looks down to the now calmer hues. Is there anything else we deem of import to discuss while we're here? The doll lets out a tortured sigh. Lady, I've just been told that Irem ass-blasted itself into Armageddon by Big Hero Goldenfart here, because they were too busy fighting over whose magic sugar daddy likes the best. Kind of digesting a lot here. Rose regards the tree with a warmer smell than she would have thought, knowing who it contains. It was, surprisingly, a pleasure to speak with you, Edmund. No doubt I'll come back on occasion. How am I best to inform you that I wish to visit? The wind around her lifts in playful amusement. Well, the innkeeper of the Draconic Dove seems to have taken quite a liking to you. Convey your words to her, and I will listen in kind. But regardless of where you tread, I will remain ever vigilant of your presence. It is the least I owe to your safety and arrival, and the friends of the old world. Rose chuckles slightly. Indeed, Thalgr will be more than happy to know you're watching over her just as much. I suppose I should extend the offer as well. Should you ever need me, you have about, 50,000 people down there to call upon me. I shall do what I can for the betterment of mankind. Very well, you have heard much today. The mysteries of your world no longer shrouded in shadow. So tell me, what is it you plan to do next? Rose pauses in thought. Immediately next? Probably have some whiskey and contemplate my existence. Future? I'm not so sure. I can tell the old gods are still up there. I'm not sure what the people even want. I'll need to research more, see if I can find out who this Felonite is, somehow. I'm probably going to reach out to Sally, given she's a dragon, likely still alive, I hope. I don't know of anyone else who will have lived this long, sadly. She stands to stretch, getting ready to shortly take her leave. All good avenues indeed. Whatever your choice, I will be watching, whether to guide or to understand. The world is ever shifting, old friend, and I am curious to see what part you will play in its unfolding. Rose bows her head in respect to the tree before preparing to take her leave. I was brought back for a reason, it seems. So, as am I. After a lengthy conversation with the sophist, Rose treads her way back towards the entrance of the Garden of Dilmun. The wind flutters by her hair as if bidding her goodbye. The air is sweet, and the leaves in the air are light. The same cannot be said for the weight in her mind. Hughes eventually speaks up. Great, so the world's a fuck and Goldenfart's got carte blanche to go big brother on you. He blows a raspberry, which, considering the circumstances, is a rather mild reaction. But knowing it's the chuckle fucks up here who are partially responsible for everything going tits up, I don't know, there's some sort of vindication for never going balls deep into that nonsense. Rose chuckles. Well, I plan on researching exactly how it went down. As much as we know Edmund has never been one to flat out lie, his words were often honeyed. So we shall see soon. Overall, though, a surprisingly good outcome for this meeting, I'd say. The doll lets out a lengthy groan. Porn better get real kinky in these last few centuries, otherwise I'm going to bore myself into a coma in the library. Rose laughs again. Would you rather I search for a stripper with 3 tits and leave you nestled between them at the brothel while I work? She says sarcastically. Don't tempt me with the promised land in that tone of voice, the doll whines. Even a succubus would get upset. Yeah, you're right. That does sound nice. Well, let's go get that whiskey, eh? I wonder if I pour some on you if you can get drunk. That's probably not a good idea. She takes her leave from the glorious garden into the third ring, putting on her more official face and body language as she passes through the guards. By the time she enters back into the centre of Monday, myrrh and muted chanting submerges the third ring like a fog. The dim sunlight overhead is bleeding away into the heavens, and yet the streets are still busy as ever in this vessel-like roads of the city. By the time she gets back to the first ring, it'll be dark, so without wasting further time, she descends the many stairs back towards the draconic dove. However, back in the Garden of Dilmun, the boughs of the sophist rustle as if rousing to life. Fascinating, is it not? Untouched by the ravages of time, thought to be lost, and yet here she stands, changed but with the same vibrant spirit, just as you remembered. From the opposite end of the magnificent trunk, obscured by leaves, emerges a metallic felonite from the shadows. I did not speak of you, as I'd promised. Yet you heard her words, did you not? The way she mentioned you, curious, searching, seeking any fragment of proof that you still linger in this world, probing with quiet intent. Will you not go to her? The necrotic figure curls up into itself like an impenetrable boulder. You ask for too much. The leaves dance on the ground, wistfully in resignation. In time, then, when your wounds have healed and the weight of centuries no longer pull you down, I'm sure you will find your voice once more, and when it comes, you will have much to say to her and Mr. Sarmenti. Upon Rose's return to the draconic dove, Thalgra practically manhandles her into a vacant table. Oh, you're back. Come, take a seat. You simply must tell me what happened. Rose, caught off guard by this, noting the attention that this is causing and the rather sensitive conversation that was had, Rose doesn't feel as comfortable talking about her experience in the open. Perhaps, for privacy's sake, we should discuss in my room. I'd like to get some drinks as well. She smiles, trying to convey that there's nothing to worry about, but that she does want to talk in privacy. Oh, where are my manners? Yes, of course. Thalgra nods, unbothered by the delay as she clasps her hands in a show of hospitality. You must be knackered from the hike down. What would you like for drinks? A spot of dinner too, while you're at it? Rose smiles. I'd love a hearty stew and some whiskey. It indeed has been quite the workout. If not, I'll take anything that's going. Peering over to today's special board, Thalgra turns back with a smile. Chicken chili and white eye, and some smoked whiskey, love. How does that sound? Rose sighs in happiness. Lovely. How much will that run me? Bring the whole bottle up in 2 glasses, she grins. There's a lot to talk about. The food's already paid for, dear. It's part of the package. The whiskey, though? She shoots Rose a sly wink. It's on the house. Hop on up. I'll be with you in a second. Rose begins to skip on up to her room, entering the door, and closes it and sighs before mentally preparing herself. Oh, I forgot to ask Edmund what's safe to talk about. I knew this was coming, but I still forgot. Hughes responds. Well, that's on you, not me. It seems 0% sympathetic towards her plight. Judging by puppy eyes down there, you could probably tell her that the tree licks feet and she'd eat it up. Rose chuckles at the given example. You're probably right. However, let's try and not be too reckless. I'll probably ask some probing questions first to see how much context I can skip. Rose leaves the door unlocked and ajar as she sets up a table or two. Context schmontext. At most, maybe the history lesson. Everything else, just fucking lie. I don't want to end up as some hollowed out prison fleshlight just because you let slip that Treadmond was actually the fucking angel of death in a past life. Rose smirks. That's the part I don't think I'll be mentioning, so you don't need to worry about that. Now, hush you. The doll unleashes a taunting belch in her general direction. Perfect, Rose says as she waits for Thalgra to arrive. After around 5 minutes, Rose hears erratic footsteps approaching. Thalgra waltzes in, dressed swirling like a flamenco dancer, with a carefully balanced tray of chili and whiskey in one hand. Here I am, love. Hope you're hungry. God, I am. That was some hike we did today. And you don't even seem to be bothered by it all. How do you do it? Rose beams with a warm smile as Thalgra enters. Her mood is infectious, that's for sure. Darling, when you live here, every day is cardio day. The innkeeper sets down the tray, immediately filling the room with an appetizing smell. The guard duty helps too. Old Thorkel, who lives on Hampire Walk, still beats us, though. 80 years and he still has the endurance of an ostrich. Rose puffs out her cheeks in exhaustion at the thought. The verticality of Mundy speaks volumes to that. I can well believe it. She pauses for a tentative moment before adding her serious tone to the requests that follow. Thalgra, I'm more than happy to talk about what happened today, but I need to be sure of something with you. Whatever is spoken about does not leave this room. It's very important that you agree to this. Thalgra continues with her usual smile. Oh, darling, I may look like an airhead, but I won't go blabbing about the streets about it. She laughs, in an uncertain way. She seems to at least be telling the truth about not talking about it to everyone. Okay, that's fine and all, but I seriously mean to the grave levels of secrecy. Not even your mother, best friend, co-workers. I need you to promise on that. Her tone and facial expression are dead serious. Thalgra looks like a dog who was just denied a luscious piece of steak. Oh, not even Junie? She seems to be struggling with her inner impulses. All right, she says, relenting as she lets out a heavy sigh. Lips are sealed. Rose seems to let out a weight of exhaustion, seemingly being able to trust the innkeeper. Yes, unfortunately, this is quite the tea you're getting here. I'm sharing this with you as thanks because you're very invested in it, but to the wrong person, not great circumstance for myself. Rose takes a deep breath, ready to say some things she's been worried to say for a while. Tell me, how much do you know of the old gods? Thalgra seems to ponder as she sets the table with the meals. Just as much as anyone, she says non-committally. I'm no historian. Never did well in school for that. I only know that they led people astray, enough to cause the big hullabaloo ages and ages ago. But I reckon that's no different to any religion, really. You get luminates who act in good faith, and the occasional illuminate who thinks they can preach it better than the sophist, and that's how the squabbles start. Thalgra uncorks a bottle of whiskey, filling Rose's glass, signalling that she's free to speak. Yes, that sounds about right. I'm quite well versed when it comes to the old gods. Do you know about their chosen? How they would grant a shard of their power to people like you and me, someone who they felt carried the right will to act as they would should they be walking amongst us. Thalgra seems to pause for a moment. Oh, you're kind of a historian, are you? She thinks for a moment. It rings a bell, but they also fought in that big war, didn't they? Rose raises an eyebrow at this. Well, that I did not know, which is an interesting tidbit because I was one of them, and I was not there. Rose waits for a moment to see Thalgra's reaction before adding any context. However, in the corner, Rose can hear a muffled displeasure from the bag. What the fuck, Peanut? Thalgra seems to blink even before she hears the noise. What was that? Rose responds as quickly as she can. Must have been someone in another room. She deflects. It'll be more to explain if Hughes pipes up, and surely he knows that. She definitely looks like she hasn't bought it, but she remains seated, shooting a smile. Well, let's see. You were one of them, the old chosen? But that means you would be over a few 100 years old. Rose sighs, taking another breath, getting ready to spill it again. Hopefully it goes as well as it did with Sealang. I'm about 40 years old. However, I just woke up from a 300-year nap. Locked away in time. Kelna is so much different to how I remember it. I've lost my connection to my patron deity, the abilities I once wielded, my friends and family. That's a rather pleasant story. Thalgra attempts to give her the bartender standard chuckle before noting her serious expression. The gravity of what Rose is saying begins to hit her as she drops her spoon into the chili. That is why... I don't even know what to say. I suppose that's why you looked like you didn't know nut about the place. Rose just shrugs. Precisely. I don't. Everything here is extremely foreign to me. But regardless, I did in fact have long and many detailed conversation with the sophist. Though I am curious, how did it become as such that an immense entity appeared here? She asks, trying to play innocent like she doesn't know the context, but playing off the fact that she knows nothing. Thalgra chuckles with a wry smile. Darling, I might be bad at the books, but I can still recite the first few verses of Vilra 1203. She clears her throat. Ere the orate sophist's birth, the shepherd roamed the lands. Rose lets her recite the text in its entirety. Her jaw drops with the added context that she never had after reading the pamphlet from the swamp. Wow. Even after speaking with them, then hearing again, it makes a lot more sense. Well, long ago, I once knew the person who had sacrificed himself to become the sophist. We had much to talk about, with him being the only person so far to recognize who I was, given my 300-year absence from these lands. Rose doesn't mention that they once used to be enemies, or any context regarding who Edmund once was. That's amazing, Thalgr says in starstruck awe. It's no wonder the sophist wanted to meet you then. Oh, to be in your shoes. And you don't look a day over 30. What were they like? As cautious as she looks, the innkeeper cannot help but lean over in vested interest. In a word, brilliant. It's the truth, and Rose knows it. She won't honey that fact. However, it seems they were up to a lot more during the 60 years from my departure. I'm curious to look into it. However, it's not my place to tell you who they were. I doubt they'd be happy if I were to share that information, so I'll keep it limited. Thalgr looks a little crestfallen. No, I understand. I doubt I'd be able to keep mum about it either. Then the Illuminates would be knocking on my door for a change. Oh, but not knowing would drive me around to bed too. The innkeeper lets out a noise of displeasure. No, stay cool. Rose can't help but giggle at this. Yes, I do understand the desire to know. It was the same for myself. But moving on from that, we had a long conversation about the main events that had transpired. Why the old gods are cut off, how they got into the position they are, how I arrived here after so much time. It was more of a reunion than anything. She shrugs, taking a sip of her whiskey here and there. A catch-up between ancient friends. Well, it's not every day a historical figure comes to stay at my inn. Seems they begin to share in taking sips of their drink together, toasting. However, the drink had loosened Rose's lips a little. Well, given the length of time that has passed, I'm not sure I qualify. Nobody knows my name, which, to be fair, I'm honestly thankful for. It was a tough job being the chosen of order. Everyone wanted my blessings. I couldn't have stayed at an inn like this without you getting inundated with people begging you to tell me what room I'd had. The instant that order is mentioned, Thalgr's eyes go wide in blank surprise. Order? The Order Elder? The muffled noise from the bag in the corner speaks once more. Ooh, boy. Rose, realizing now that she's too deep in to deny what's been said, she just agrees. That's one of the big ones, and you're here. There's a hint of fearful apprehension in her voice. And what do you plan to do? Rose somewhat deflects. First of all, nothing crazy, don't worry. I'm not going to be trying to rise up and release all the gods or whatever. My current objective is trying to find out if any of my friends are still alive, and how I got held in time and got here. After that, I don't know. However, I'm definitely not the type to try and mess with whatever balance the world has. I won't be disrupting anything. She looks down at her food and whiskey and speaks solemnly. I just want to be happy. I was attacked on my birthday 300 years ago. My father was killed in front of me on the same night. Now I'm here, and everything has changed. The innkeeper releases a breath she didn't know she was holding on to, as she relaxes her shoulders back into her seat. The sunny Thalgr looks at her with a rare expression of understanding. I'm sorry to hear about that, darling. About your father, too. Back then the world was whole, wasn't it? She chooses her words carefully, like stepping on an icy lake. No sophists, no big holes in the ground. Waking up, it must have been a real shock. I get that weird feeling when I go back home for the holidays, and things have changed in just the blink of a few years. Shops closing down, a new child here and there, another 6 foot deep. I can't imagine what 300 years is like. Rose smiles through a sadness beneath. It's been an experience. I'm glad I've been able to meet some nice people since I've come back. It's helped a lot. But it does feel like I've been thrown into the deep end without knowing which way is up. I'm essentially going to be learning a whole new world, 300 years of history, before I even know what to do with myself. She sinks into her chair a little heavy, a little lost. The deep end. Tell me about it. Thalgr lets out a laboured breath as her goblet goes bottoms up. Monday has good folk, for the most part. I don't think you'll find yourself wanting for nice people. You'll be barking up the wrong tree, asking me 20 questions about this and that, but there are plenty of archives for what I imagine you want to look at. The old gods and all the history that happened after that. Rose smiles. That's next in my list in the morning. I'll be spending some time there reading up on all I've missed. I'll likely be visiting the sophist again. I have too many questions, but I need to narrow them down before I return. Only then will I have directions for finding out why I'm here. Rose shakes her head gently in defiance. If I've been brought back to do this and that, I'm not one to shy away from walking away from what's expected of me if I disagree with it, so we'll see what this path that's been laid before me looks like. Thalgr sighs again. It sounds difficult, what you have on your plate. Whatever it is, I hope everything goes well for you, just so long as it's not an uprising of some kind. She laughs, nervously, but she does speak her mind. The Illuminates will never let me hear the end of it if I were to harbour a religious insurrection under my roof. Rose looks a little defensive and anxious. Oh, absolutely not. It was never something I wanted back when I was around. It's not something I wish to disturb now. You needn't worry about that. But I'm sure you understand now why I asked you to swear not to tell a soul of this. I assume I can still hold you to that. She says this, reading her gaze, ensuring she'll comply, not that she could do much otherwise. Thalgr returns the gaze with an exhausted look. Darling, this? I'm too scared out of my knickers of the thought of telling anyone else. I wouldn't even know where to start. There's a soft smile of relief, as if a weight had been lifted. My thanks. I know it's a weight to hold, coming from first-hand experience. I don't think I could have made up anything convincing enough to lie to you about my first visit. As much as the truth is dangerous, I figured maybe you'd rather know than be fed honeyed lies. A weight seems to have been lifted from Rose, but the innkeeper seems freshly burdened. I'm not sure, love. There's a crack in her practiced smile. This is a lot to be told. I can't tell if you'd rather lie to me that the Sophid had a penchant for soft feet. Rose giggles. That's the second time I've heard that today. But regardless, I'm thankful to have you on this endeavour. You've been more help than you can imagine in just 24 hours, and I appreciate it greatly. Rose seems much more relaxed, in stark difference to how Thalgr must feel, so she pours her some more whiskey. Thalgr has the expression of a very stressed-out Labrador. I'm glad to hear it, really. And to think that you looked fresh as a daisy in that dress, like a patron saint. Rose grins, knowing that she can talk a little more freely about it now. Well, doesn't it make a little more sense? This is the garb I would have adventured in 300 years ago. The fact that nobody recognises me in it has actually been a relief. I do love wearing it. Rose continues on the conversation, but notices Thalgr's continued unease. I'm aware this is a lot for you. Are you all right? Thalgr exhaled out of her puffed cheeks. I think I need another bottle for that. Rose chuckles softly. My treat this time? The innkeeper laughs and manages to offer a smile. I'll take you up on that, darling, though before I do, well... Her eyes lift to the bag in the corner, anxious once again, but the words don't come out. Come on, Thalgr, come on. You're not trafficking kobolds in there, are you? There's a pause as Rose attempts to figure out what she means, only to break out into belly laughter. Oh my, no. I can show you if you want, but the truth's actually weirder than that. She shrugs while continuing to giggle. Oh, please do, dear. I'm no longer a guard, but that's still some really tricky business if that were the case. Rose grins and shrugs, walks over to the bag and pulls out Hugh's. This is a doll I made when I was very young, of my father, I told you, who was killed in front of me. He used it as a diary, enchanted it with his thoughts before his passing. When I woke up, the enchantment came to life, and so the doll is alive with his personality. Rose holds out the doll, who begins to speak. Trog's tits, girl. Did that whiskey make your lips looser than a cheap hooker on a Friday night? Fucking burn me. To Rose's surprise, Thalgr doesn't even blink. She only looks slightly more relieved that she's not holding a kobold. Honestly, darling, this feels like a drop in the bucket compared to everything you've told me. How about I go get another bottle? Thalgr leaves, heading down and bringing up another bottle, one that is much stronger than the last. The rest of the night is enjoyed, in relative unease on Thalgr's part, with conversation and drink. By the time both of them have concluded their night, Rose is utterly smashed. Still feeling the fire in her throat, she waves goodbye to a swaying Thalgra, who smiles and slips away with much less fanfare than she entered. Rose can feel the doll regarding her with disgusted incredulity. Great. Just great. When the secret police come knocking on our door tomorrow, I'm booking it the hell out of here. Rose hiccups through slurred speech. Nah, just chill out. We'll be fine. Falgra's brand new. I can tell she won't say anything to anyone. Rose's eyes are half shut. They demand sleep in that luxurious four-poster king bed made from the softest wool Kirkwold has ever shorn from sheep is calling her like a cloud formed by angels. At least that's what she sees. I told you to talk about the history lesson. History, not spell out your entire sobble backstory. Her vision is wobbling so much she could swear that the doll was hopping up and down in a rage. Did you see that woman? She looks like you gave her 4 different types of anxiety disorders. If she bursts, I wouldn't even blink an eye. I'd just tell you that you had it coming, and you're getting the goblin bath treatment that I got the other day. Remember that? I bet you don't. Rose's ears are already hurting from the noise. At this point, she's actively trying not to listen. I just needed a friend. I'm sorry. You don't... Please keep it down. The hiccups are still flowing. Your head hurts. I'll give you something to get a headache over. The doll seems to inhale with the full force of enraged spite as it starts belting out the lyrics to Last Christmas I Gave You My Heart. There's a really small part of Rose that wants to just tear Hughes to pieces. How does he know what she's going through? So judgmental. Does she really need him? But she pushes that down, throwing herself onto the bed and covering her head with a pillow, trying as best as she can to cover her ears. If she ignores him for long enough, maybe he'll give up. But the doll continues its psychic tirade on her senses. It goes on for longer than she could possibly think. The minutes stretch on, but eventually it stops. Despite the light coming through the window, as soon as silence hits, she passes out. But when her eyes open, a boundless field of white snow stretches before her, frost-bitten winds whispering past her face and hair. Each step is muffled, as though the world holds its breath. Above, the suffocating night looms, only broken by a drifting veil of snow. In her left hand, an unbloodied dagger, and at her belt, an empty hourglass with no sand. The horizon blurs where frost meets darkness. In the distance, all that breaks it, is a figure in thick black robes, with hair and skin as white as the snow below her, walking into the darkness. She can see his footprints in the snow, and she can hear in her head, "In his heart is a brilliant white soul, and you must extinguish it." This is the dream she saw a glimpse of when showing her end to Edmund. She narrows her eyes, taking stock of the figure before her. "Hey you," she calls out to the figure. The distant shuffling stops as the figure slowly turns in her direction. She can barely make out his expression, or lack thereof. There's a tingling feeling in her digits, where a dagger might sit between them. She's acutely aware of her heart beating in her chest, remembering that she saw herself standing over his bloodied corpse in a flashback, then remembering that she says she has full control over her fate if she wants. She discards the dagger, throwing it into the snow. "You said we can't kill each other, right? Come talk to me." It pains her to say, but she wants information more than revenge in this moment. And according to her flashback, she's already had it. The man's thick robes billow gently in the wind as snow builds and melts around him. In the snow and wind, she can barely make out his words. That's a first. Even with the wind and snow, she strangely doesn't feel cold at all. Her mouth feels dry. She's a ball of jitters ready to pounce like a coiled spring. What's a first? Every time you're in my dreams or visions, it's like you're actually there. I've seen this scene before. I just want to talk. Rose approaches. She tangles her arms to try and make it easier to fight this feeling. Perhaps it's the silence around them, but for someone with his intimidating stature, he's strangely soft-spoken. Wanting to talk. It won't last long. His blank white eyes stare pointedly into hers, just as searing compulsion flashes into her synapses. The voice of order booms into her mind. "In his heart is a brilliant white soul, and you must extinguish it." Rose doesn't need a dagger to kill a man. All she needs is a running start and 2 working hands. Innate bloodlust seizes her as she pounces through the snow, closing the distance, as she closes her hands around his throat like a constrictor snake. Both of them fall back into the snow, as his own instincts compel him to grasp and choke for any ounce of air, but yet there is no feeling of his arms tearing at her, like they ought to be. Rose tries to fight against it. She doesn't want to do this. She wants to talk. How many times have you lived this nightmare? Why do you seem so subdued to what you expect to be the end of your life? I thought we could not kill each other. And still, something innate and ancient urges to squeeze harder. Fists stir the snow into a furious flurry around them as he chokes and gags until eventually silence. As his final breath escapes him, the man slumps into the snow, glassy-eyed and bereft of life. She is still on him, pondering this image, with the faintest feeling of familiarity. As she hears the empty hourglass crack, hasn't this happened before? Then suddenly, her eyes open again. A boundless field of white snow stretches before her, frostbitten winds whispering past her face and hair. Each step is muffled as though the world holds its breath. Above, the suffocating night looms, broken only by a drifting veil of snow. In her left hand, an unbloodied dagger. At her belt, an empty hourglass with no sand. And below her, a changeling, freshly deceased. The heavy snow is beginning to subsume and bury him.